I had a commenter ask me about meal prep, and so I thought I'd do a video about what I do for meal prep. So I'm actually a really pretty lazy cook these days. I used to do a lot of cooking when I was younger, a lot when I was in my 20s especially. I used to bake my own bread, make my own tortillas, just make food of all sorts. But I've never really had any formal training. I did work in a deli for a while when I was in high school and a little bit in college. However, I don't really know what I'm doing entirely when it comes to cooking. And I don't know, I've gotten just increasingly less interested in cooking and just mostly want something that's generally healthy to eat and inexpensive. So of course I don't actually go out to eat very much. That costs a lot of money, it's very expensive. Especially having worked in the kitchen, I know a lot of people that have worked in kitchens feel the same way. You see how things are prepared. At my current job, I go to a lot of restaurants and I get to see their dirty dishwater. I get to see how their kitchen operates in the back a lot of the time. And when I was in training, I got to see a lot of their cooking oil and see what kind of condition it was in, how often they changed it, that sort of thing. And it's a little bit scary. Some places are actually okay, but I just don't see that much value in going out to eat unless it's maybe with some friends or something like that. And even then, I just don't want to be spending my money that way. I'm in the middle of debt repayment and that is my primary goal at the moment. So let me show you how I prepare my food. Just for a setting, it's a little bit after midnight on a weekday because I got kind of busy over the weekend. I haven't quite figured out the timing for my meal prep, and so I ended up doing a lot of it on just kind of odd days like this. But you know, here we are. So today we are going to make some pasta and it's going to be super cheap. So I'm not quite lazy enough to make everything in one pot. There's a lot of these like one pot recipes where you just throw a bunch of things into a pot, and you can do that with pasta, but I don't know, I just never find those things turn out all that well. So I'm actually going to cook my pasta separately from the sauce and the vegetables, and I'm going to try to make it as healthy as possible, and we'll see how it goes. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill up this pot here with water. So I usually just use plain water if I'm going to cook some pasta. I don't bother with salting it because I don't find it actually makes that big of a difference. I don't put oil in it because that does absolutely nothing as far as I can tell. And again, I'm lazy and I don't have a lot of time because I have to go to bed in a couple of hours. Alright, so that gets turned on high, and while that's warming up, I'll get the rest of my sauce going. I guess it's sauce, I don't know. So the next thing that I do is I grab a bunch of random frozen vegetables out of the freezer. I used to use fresh vegetables, and especially when I was living in my car, I used fresh vegetables because I didn't have a freezer, I just had a fridge. But I decided to switch to frozen vegetables because frozen vegetables, they last a lot longer. I was having troubles, actually I've always had a lot of troubles, actually using up all of the vegetables before they went bad. So I was getting a lot of waste. And not only is just wasting food kind of generally bad, but it also meant I was wasting a lot of money. Frozen vegetables are maybe slightly more expensive. They stay good for a whole lot longer, and so that's why I do that. So anyways, I tend to just buy a variety of random frozen vegetables. In this case, we have broccoli, spinach. Spinach works pretty well when it's frozen. We have mushrooms. I'm not entirely convinced that mushrooms are the best frozen, but otherwise I wouldn't really get mushrooms. They just go bad on me. We have this, some fire roasted bell peppers and onions. You can see a lot of this stuff. In fact, I think everything I have right now is from Trader Joe's. You know, decent quality. It's cheap. It's actually a lot cheaper than it is at the regular grocery store, at least around here. We have peas and an organic foursome vegetable medley. So that looks like it's peas, corn, carrots, green beans, stuff like that. So I take these frozen vegetables and I randomly pour them into the pot. So you can see there I have my vegetables. I usually fill the pot up not completely full, but pretty close to full. Once you start thawing out the vegetables, then the whole thing just kind of reduces down a bit. Usually I put olive oil down at the bottom of this to help prevent things from burning or sticking or something, but I forgot to do that, so it's going on top today. All right, so there we have it. I'm gonna turn that on and let the melting start. Another item that I get a lot of is just pasta sauce. And so this actually is about the same price as a can of tomatoes. You do have to do a little bit of shopping around to find the right pasta sauce. I don't like ones with sugar in them. It tastes weird and I don't need extra sugar. And for some reason, a lot of them are just obscenely expensive and I don't really understand why. Honestly, I don't think anyone can actually tell the difference between most of these brands. It's really basic ingredients. Most of these are just like tomato, water, olive oil. I get the really simple ones because I can always add stuff to it. Anyways, while my vegetables are thawing out, I just dump this in like that. And there you have it. My pasta sauce is being made. Alright, so my water is now boiling and I just threw in the pasta. Here's what I use for pasta. It's just a whole wheat spaghetti. Really simple. I always get the whole wheat stuff. Maybe it's a little bit better for you. In fact, it almost certainly is. But it also has a lot more flavor, or I should say it actually has flavor. But anyways, it does take a little while to cook. That's the only downside to whole wheat pasta. So it's just gonna sit there for a while. And probably about the time my vegetables are thawed out, my pasta will be done. Well, while that's cooking, I want to talk a little bit more about why I do meal prep. So I have really two reasons for it. The first is saving time. I have very limited amount of time. I already work about 50-hour weeks, maybe just slightly less, although if you count the commute, it's about 50-hour week. And then of course I also run this YouTube channel. I have other things I have to deal with, like keeping this apartment clean. I have other projects I'm trying to work on, like that sailboat design that I'm working on, and all of that stuff takes time, and doing meal prep, it just saves a lot of time. Another reason why I do it is it's about the only way I can eat healthy. A lot of the store-bought food or restaurant food is honestly just not that healthy unless you're really careful about where you eat and what you eat, and a lot of it's just not that satisfying, honestly, especially store-bought food. And so you end up just eating more than you mean to, and it's just all around kind of bad. And the last reason, of course, is financial. This entire meal, probably the most expensive thing was the tomato sauce. I think this will probably last me about 4 or 5 meals, something like that. And it'll cost me less than, I don't know, $10 maybe at most. So it's maybe like $2 a meal on average, something like that. And that is definitely something that I can afford. One thing that I almost forgot to mention was that I am vegetarian, lifelong vegetarian, so that actually does save me a bit of money. But I do eat fake meat sometimes. I know it's not always the best for you, but as a source of protein, I kind of end up either eating fake meat or eggs, something like that. And so I'm going to be throwing a couple of these Trader Joe's vegan Italian style sausages in my food. Got to have a little bit of protein, especially in my line of work. It's very physical, and I get really sore muscles if I don't eat some significant amount of protein, unfortunately. And I do have to eat a fair amount of protein just to keep my energy levels up. So that is the end result, and I'm done. I just put the pasta in with the rest of the vegetables. As you can see, this is mostly vegetables and other things. The pasta is just a component. I don't bother taking it out of the pot. I just leave it in the pot. I store it that way. I know it's not ideal, but I don't really want to do tons of extra dishes, and it's a lot more work. When I'm getting ready to go in the morning, I just put it in one of these containers, usually, or depending on what it is, I also use that stainless steel container. And I actually got these because several years ago, I actually did this fitness challenge. I got paid to do a fitness challenge, and I ended up having to do a lot of meal prep for that, and so that's why I have these. And I have about 1 million of these, so I don't really know what to do with them all. But I actually don't divide up the portions for the entire week. I just put them in a container on the day that I actually need them. They are good containers. So this is just one of several different variations of meals that I create, but they all kind of look a lot like this. Unfortunately, they do all kind of taste a little bit similar, and so it does get a little bit boring after a while, but it saves me so much time and money, I don't really care most of the time. I've also found that there are days where I just make a mistake, I don't have things ready to go, and I end up having to buy food for that day. It usually happens once or twice a week, something like that, and I don't really beat myself up too much about it. I just buy the food, and it gives me a little bit of variation in my diet. Usually I have about 2 different types of meals that are prepared and sitting in pots in my fridge at one time. I don't actually have 2 right now, I only have this one. It's just where things are in the cycle of the week. But the theme is generally fairly similar. Lots of vegetables, some reasonably healthy carbs in smaller quantities, some sort of protein, and that's usually about it. But so anyways, I know I'm not a chef. I know I don't make the most exciting food. I do change up the ingredients quite a bit as well. So the vegetables are different, and like the carbohydrates different. Sometimes it's rice, sometimes it's pasta, sometimes it's tortillas, something like that. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question about how I do meal prep. It saves me a ton of money and a ton of time.